So let's have a look at some of the quick features of this amp. And I've opened this up as a VST in one of my tracks in Reaper, and it's really simple to download and to load it into one of the tracks. So there's no issue. It works with all the usual DAWs, so you're not going to have a problem there. So once you open it up, first things first, it looks awesome. It looks really cool. Very minimal design, very black. Really like it. Simple in terms of layout. It's not confusing at all. So if we look at the control panel, you've got the usual suspects, really. You've got a preamp, a bass, middle, treble, a master volume, which is, you'll see, due to the cascading gain, the master and the preamp gain work very well together, and it really creates a lot of different sounds. Then you've got a presence and a depth. Those two, again, depending how you set them up, you can get an enormous variety of tones with those two. So what you have to the left, you'll see this really cool symbol which kind of goes through the theme of this amp. So what you have is different impedance curves. Again, this is another really nice option which they've put. They're presets, basically. They're EQ presets. They're there to kind of further tailor your sound if you're looking for something different, if you're going into a mix and want to add something slightly darker, slightly brighter. You can play around with these to get individual tones. So really useful to just have this and be able to experiment with different tones. Where you see the Otto audio symbol to your right, again, if you click on that, you've got all the cabinets. So this comes with 22 preloaded cabs. They are all of excellent standard. They're really good. Honestly, they're as good as anything I've ever heard. The Otto Audio guys also do cab packs, which you can load into this. But just with these 22, you've got a lot of sounds there. You've got, you know, really, really good cab sims with different microphones, and they all sound awesome. So if we then swiftly move to the second part of the screen, so essentially where it's replicating the cab down here. On the left, you've got essentially what you have all the presets though. So the main menu for all the presets. The first one you'll see is the amp match. So essentially it's where the guys at Otto Audio are trying to replicate some of the most classic and famous rock tones. So you have a lot going on here. So you've got everything from Soldanos to Marshalls to, I believe, Friedman to Mesa to Combo. You've got to 5150s. You've got a lot here. Now, I don't know if that's the intention when this was first done, but my impression is that these aren't your typical emulation of something. This amp isn't really trying to be all these different amps. What they're trying to do is retaining the characteristics, so the basic tone of the 1111, it's trying to put itself or trying to sound a little bit like, so in terms of EQ, cabinet, etc., it's trying to get in the ballpark of these amps. After the amp match, you have an artist preset, which is coming soon. So I'm assuming the idea behind this is they're going to have some presets done by certain people, and they're going to roll them out to everyone else. So I've actually loaded one of my own presets in here, and it's called PHR, Penny Hill's Regret, Distortion. So I've just taken the liberty to put it in there, and we'll listen to that because for me, that is the essence of this amp, that one that I've played with, but each to their own. So after the artist presets, you have 10 bass and I believe another 10 baritone presets. That is very, very cool that they've included that, because this is essentially a one-stop shop, especially for someone like me who's in the recording studio and wants to get stuff done that sounds really good. And if I'm playing bass, I just hook into this and it's really cool. They are very, very good sounds, even for bass. I don't at the moment have a baritone, so I'm going to try that out in a little while, but I can assure you the bass sounds rock. Okay, guys, so after the baritones, you've got another four banks full of presets. You've got also audio 2, 3, and 11M2. And all of these have a real variety of presets. I'm interpreting that some of these are based on famous albums, famous artists, or some of the, most iconic sounds in the rock world. So I really, even just with the presets, you've got so much, and it gives you such a good variety of sounds, and they all sit and complement each other really well in the mix. A really interesting thing, which personally I've never seen before, after all the presets, you also have a number of presets tuned exclusively if you're wearing headphones. And that is really cool. As you can see, obviously I'm wearing headphones, but a lot of people don't have the space or don't have the opportunity to have monitors like some of us do, and so that is very, very cool if you're mixing or if you're recording and you've got these sounds in there that are already tuned and EQ'd, especially for headphones. I think that's a fantastic idea, actually, and I'm really happy that they've included that. After that, you've got a number of opportunities to create banks and new presets, so you can save them, etc. So very flexible, very easy to navigate, really clear. I really like the incredible variety of tones that you've got in this, and as someone who grew up listening to a lot of these sounds, it's really funny how you can kind of immediately go, "Oh, that's from," and that to me is this, and some of them are really accurate. So it's a great, great, great amp. To the right of the amp selection, you have another pop-up menu, which again gives you a number of presets, which shapes your tone, and you can use in conjunction with whatever amp you're using and whatever impedance curve you're using. And that's the real beautiful thing here. All of these things aren't exclusive to one another. So you can stack it on or take it out or shape the tone. So you can choose a certain amp with a certain impedance, certain cabinets, and certain EQ. And all these presets you can work on together. So that for me is a big change to the kind of fixed way that these ampsims usually force you to play with whatever simulation they're making. Then we have inputs and outputs, as usual with most of these, and you can adjust accordingly. Another of my personal top features is the mono stereo and stereo setup. So you may not think it's particularly exciting, but what is really cool is obviously some of us plug in straight into an audio interface and we go straight in mono. And what is really cool is that if you select the mono stereo option, it will essentially double track your guitar with a slight delay, and it sounds absolutely huge. And that is an enormous thing for me. It gives it depth. It sounds like there's two guitars. It essentially sounds like if in your DAW you're double tracking the guitars. After that, you have just the usual oversampling rate. And then to the right, you have a punch, which is essentially like a boost, and an option to either switch on or off the power amp. If then you go over the valves and click on that, you move to the back of the amp. Got a switch for an 1111 mod. Then you have a number of toggle switches. So you've got punish, which just really brings everything up. Essentially, it's very cool if you really want to hit it hard. Then you have a 10 dB volume increase, and you've got a low switch, which, if I'm not mistaken, will tighten up your low end. Underneath, you have a gate knob, and I'm always a bit wary about noise gates in DAWs or in ampsims, because I always find they cut off too much, they're too harsh. This one is really good. You can fine tune it. It doesn't kill your sustain, and it works really well. So I'm very happy with that. You also will find that you will need this gate, because like if you're using a real tube amp, it can get quite noisy when you're running high levels of gain. So the gate is a great addition. Moving to the right is you've got a power tube selection. You've got 3 choices: EL34, 606, or KT88 for your power tube. So, you know, they make a bit of a difference. It's in how the amp feels and reacts as well. Like in real life, I found that you may prefer 606s or EL34s for certain applications. I tend to use those ones, not so much the KT88s, but yeah, that's a really cool feature, again, to, you know, fine tune and kind of find your own sound. I think that's what I'm getting out of this, is that it really gives you all the tools you may need in a very simple way, just to find the sound that you've got in your head. And that I really appreciate. Keep going. So to the right, you've got a bias. So that's for the tube. So if you want a cold or hot bias your tubes, you've got a sag, which is really important in ampsims because it kind of gives you that bounciness that you've got with tube amps. You've got a feedback knob and a snarl knob. Now, the feedback knob is, and I think I mentioned this in my social media or commenting on the Otto audio Instagram, the feedback knob is awesome. I really like it because when you've got everything running really hot and you turn that feedback knob up, I am not kidding you, but I've recorded straight into my audio interface and using headphones, and I actually got the impression that my guitar was feedbacking as it would against a real cabinet. So it kind of sustains that note. It gives you that, you almost, maybe it's what I want to hear, but your ears almost hear that kind of that feedback coming back into the guitar. So I really like that. The feedback knob is one of my favorite. Then you've got an amplitude, which again is a way to kind of, when you're moving between presets, to fix how much volume and how much sound you want to kind of balance out presets. Then finally, you have the cabinet section, which we discussed on the other side about, you know, the selecting. So each cab, you're running 2 cabs, and you have the ability to change the resonance of each cab. So you select whatever cab you want to select, you go up and down like that, and you have the ability to change the resonance of each of the, you know, right or left cab. And that again is a really cool way, because you can balance the sound out if you want, or you can make it you know, slightly unique in that way. Then you have an IR bypass switch, which again, as we said before, you can load your own IR, so that's really cool. So having looked at the controls and features of the amp, it's now time to listen to some sound samples. What I've done, because there's so much choice, is picked out 5 presets that I've been using a lot in the past couple of days. One of them is the one that I've created, and so if you want the details, put a comment below or DM me and I'll shoot those over. And as usual, if you've got any questions or if you've got any comments to the sounds, you can leave me a comment below and I'll get onto those immediately. This amp has attitude, and it's simple. It has its own sound because it definitely has its own sound, and it's given you lots of cool presets to play around with. But then, if you want to create your own sound, you've got all the tools you may ever want to create that, and it's really great technology. I mean, I am so impressed with the way it responds. There's absolutely no lag. It is also my impression. I haven't measured it in any way, but I also think it's very CPU efficient on the on your computer, so it works really well. And just the sounds have been really impressive. So what do I think about it? I think this is a groundbreaking amp. Actually, I think the quality of the sounds are probably the best I've ever heard in my life. Um, and when I say the best I've ever heard, I'm not just talking about ampsims. Um, I'm actually talking about proper full-on amps. I think we need to, at this stage, and this amp has really reinforced it, we need to move on from thinking about a valve amp, amp sims, blah, 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 which one's better, all that stuff. This amp is not trying to be anything except what it is. It's a proper amp. It's, regardless of whether it's in digital version or in physical version, this is one of the best sounding overall amps I've ever heard. What I also want to stress, and I had a preconception of it when I first was speaking with the guys of also audio, and I first was introduced to this amp. I, maybe wrongly so, I thought it was just going to be aimed at really heavy rock, you know, very, very modern sounding and with a kind of limited tone palette. Um, I'm completely wrong, and that has been my biggest surprise. This isn't a one-trick pony at all, and that's, if there's one thing you need to take away from this video, is that don't be under the impression that this is just a super modern chugging amp, because it's not at all. It's got a lot of use, and it sounds fantastic, low, medium gain as well, and I really, really like it. So before we go, as usual, I don't like talking about money, but this is really reasonably priced. So if you go on their website, this is around $100, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Um, you know what? I don't think I've ever heard an amp for $100 that sounds like this, regardless of whether, generally. So this is really, really impressive. As usual, I will link the also audio website in the description. Make sure you go check them out. Follow them on all your social media. They're a really good bunch of people. Please do me a favor and hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell. I don't like saying it, but you know what? I've got to do it because it does help me, so I can keep bringing these really cool products and testing them out for you guys. So whatever you do, be good and rock.